Is that Mars? Are we on Mars yet? That's what we should have Mars.
That's pretty neat. Look at that.
I'm not pointing up there, I'm pointing at the red. Only the red.
Yeah, the red rocks.
Just the rocks and the red dirt. That's Mars. Rocks and red dirt. So why did they spend billions of dollars? They could just stuff something on there, take some pictures and say, okay, this is what it looks like. Looks like those are boats. Whoa, looks like they're hitting the rocks over here. Look, let's see. Whoa. Oh, this is why they're not letting people ride up and down.
That makes sense.
Only one. Oh, if the bus goes down, then nobody can come this direction.
That was a very narrow road.
It is. Wow. Oh, this is how they do it in other countries.
This is how we cheat doing the steps.
I think they're going to
Whoa.
Wow. Whoa. Whoa. Look at this. Oh my God. Wow. No way. Whoa. Whoa. Look at some scary.
Are you having fun yet?
Not really.
Not really.
It'd be more beautiful if there wasn't smoke.
This is true. Amazing.
Okay, the boat's waiting for us.
Who's gonna win without us?
Yeah, right. We'll have to swim across to the caves.
That was almost like come up to which picture going to with the Americans all run off the boat and then they all got shot.
Vietnam.
Yeah, the one before the first one before they all one in Vietnam they actually before that, the Americans had like 1,000 of these boats. More than half of them that pulled up, everybody was like, they didn't even get off the beach. That's why I was like, why does it keep saying that? It wasn't.
We're gonna go all the way across over there where the other buses are right there.
In the whole world right now is my wife. No, it's your boat captain, Tim. A quick safety briefing. Above our heads in those bins are personal flotation devices. They look like this. If we needed to use them, we pull on the handles, they drop down to the deck, we put our heads through the holes. There's a strap that goes around our waist with a hook and a loop to fasten them tight. We jump off the boat feet first. We don't dive because there might be something under the water that's coming up, like sunken boats. There's one coming out of the water at Holiday Harbor. There's another, what is called a Higgins boat. Looks like a World War II landing craft coming out of the water over by Bridge Bay. Fire extinguishers are on the rear of the boat next to the engines. Throat rings next to your captain. Remain calm and listen to his instructions. We'll be right over there to get onto those two buses in just a moment.
We're going to the other buses. Look. Huh? Yeah, well now you get an idea of how hard it is to go across the border, you know?
There's boats coming up out of the water that have sunk. That sounds kind of cool.
I mean, they're private on the own boats that got holes in the
These are the California Caverns. It's about a 30-minute drive from the Redding, California area. They do offer military discounts if you're military. Pretty exciting. Kids under 2 and under are free.
In the shoreline over here, that little space between those lines is 1 day's worth of water loss. So the lake drops about 6 to 10 inches a day. However, I have seen it drop upwards of a foot in 1 single day. So because the rising and falling of the lake, we have to carve out these roads every single year. And they're a little bumpy, but if you guys like roller coasters, that's okay. Just raise your hands in the air, wave them around, you know? So, as I mentioned, the lake is designed to rise and fall. Most of this water is sold to cities as far as Bakersfield, mainly for agriculture, but also for irrigation purposes. In fact, Shasta Dam, the dam that holds all this water behind it, it has 5 hydroelectric turbines. All those turbines power most of the northern state of California. Very important to the city of Sacramento as well. So the lake will fill up again. We do expect this every year. So right now, the lake level is about 172 feet from the tree line. The tree line is where the lake would be if it was full. In fact, if you're here at this same time last year, we'd be dropping you off at this sidewalk up here. We call it our sidewalk to nowhere. If you look closely, you might even see scratches in the concrete. That's from the pontoons of our boat. And then just 2 years ago in 2019, we'd actually be tying the boat up on this upper fence up here where the lawn is.
So if you're where we are right now, we're completely underwater. 2 years ago.
So we're isolated on this side of the lake, so we don't have to worry about any traffic as we're driving up this road here. We know where everybody is. You guys don't have to worry about anything. But when the lake is full, it averages about 400 feet deep. Its deepest spot is at Shasta Dam, where it's almost about 512 feet deep. However, when the lake is also full, it provides almost 400 miles of shoreline. And if we stretch that in a straight line, that would reach from all the way where we're at, all the way to about Portland, Oregon, to the border of Washington State. It's a very large reservoir. So now we found our paved road. It's gonna be a little bit smoother here. As we're driving up this road, we might get a chance to see lots of wildlife. Did anyone see any wildlife this morning? Anything at all? Squirrels. Yeah, squirrels are very common in Northern California. Also lizards, also ground squirrels as well, not just the gray squirrel. I have seen larger mammals on our mountain though. I have seen both red and gray foxes. I've seen bobcats, black-tailed deer. Haven't seen mountain lion. We do get the occasional Bigfoot sighting if you guys are lucky. But we can see a California black bear. That's our favorite animal on our mountain. So typically when we see black bears, it's one of the first tours in the morning like yourselves. So if we do see them, they're typically on the right-hand side of the bus. If we do see anything larger than a gray squirrel, tell Mark to stop the bus and I'll get out and pet it for you guys all to see. How about that? Yeah. Or maybe one of the adventurous few you guys can come out with me and we'll bring it onto the bus. All of you guys can pet it. So is this everyone's first time here today? First time? Right on. So basically I could just be making all this up and you guys wouldn't know the difference? Perfect. No, everything's going to be very factual today. We're going to have a great time. What about Shasta Lake? Is this anyone's first time to the Shasta Lake?
Yeah.
Yeah, first time? Right on. At least we can see the water today. About a month ago, it was so smoky that I couldn't even see the lake all the way from the visitor center where we're going. And it was like that for about 6 weeks. So you guys came on somewhat of a clear day. So now we're approaching into what we call Bear Alley. This is where we do see the most bear sightings. I've had about 15 sightings myself since I've worked here in the past 4 months, so keep your eyes peeled. We do see them quite often. So currently we're rising into a mixed forest zone. It's a mix of both evergreen trees and deciduous trees. So evergreen trees are what they sound like. The trees will stay green throughout the entire year. They'll never lose their leaves. Deciduous trees are the ones that turn colors in the fall. They turn those red and yellow colors. Eventually the leaves will drop, but they will grow back again in the springtime. So talking about those evergreen trees, we'll see these large trunk trees on both sides of the bus. That is ponderosa pine. So those are the largest conifers on the mountain. Conifers mean that they have pine cones. They have that plate or puzzle-like bark. We can see them on both sides of us here. We also have western white pines and gray pines, as well as lots of types of oak trees. There's black oak, white oak, and live oak, but there's also poison oak. Are you guys familiar with poison oak? Some of you? So I don't have to pass around a sample then? No? Everyone's familiar? Perfect. So if you don't know what poison oak is, it's related to poison ivy and also poison sumac. They all contain a resin that's called urushiol. So urushiol is a skin irritant. If that oil comes into contact with your skin, sometimes it can cause a rash. It's not very fun, it's very itchy and quite annoying. You guys don't have anything to worry about today. Our maintenance crew has done a terrific job of keeping it off all of the trails on the outside of the cave, and luckily there's none that grows inside the cave. So you guys should be in good shape today. How you identify it is it grows in its leaves. They grow in clusters of 3, which is why we say leaves of 3, leave it be. Also, the leaves are quite shiny, so we say if it's shiny, watch your hiney. That's what we call it. Making a little hairpin turn. Is anyone familiar with bay leaves? Everyone know what that is?
Yeah.
So there's a tree on our mountain, it's called California laurel, and that's actually the same thing as a bay leaf. So once we exit the cave, how it all starts. So before we enter, I just want to cover a few rules. They're all really important, but they're all very simple too. So the first one is just no smoking of any kind. That does include vaping and also chewing tobacco. Otherwise, no food or drinks other than water. If you guys brought water today, that's excellent. We want you to stay hydrated because we are climbing the equivalent of an 8-story building inside the mountain. That's about 250 feet or so, so I hope you guys are ready for that. Otherwise, any other food or drinks, please leave them sealed up and tucked away for the duration of the tour, but you can have them once we're outside the cave again.
You ready for your workout?
Most importantly, everyone needs to hear this, please do not touch the formations in the caverns. So the formations, you'll find out, grow extremely slow, and also they grow from water. So we all know there's oils in our skin, so if you touch a formation, it leaves behind a layer of oil that remains there forever. So simply that water that builds the formation, it actually will just bead off of that oil layer and not actually form crystal. So please don't touch anything. If I do see anybody touching something, I will have to remove you from the tour, and it's a real bummer. So please do take lots of photos. I do encourage that, but please no touching. Otherwise, use the handrails. It is kind of wet inside the caverns. It did rain about a week ago. All that water is finally starting to make its way into the caverns. Also, there's going to be lots of stairs. Don't want anyone tripping or falling. And then finally, staying with the tour. So there is another group that is behind us. So you guys all want to stay together as we're going through here. And I'm sure no one wants to get lost today, right? So I know the way in here, and I also know the way out of here. So if you guys hang out with me, you guys will be in good shape. So you guys can follow me through this door and hold it open as you walk through because it does not stay open by itself. So everyone's a good hand with me today. So outside we talked about the hollowing out process, not all of the space within the mountain forms, but we haven't talked about how the formations themselves are growing. So on the outside, as that water trickles into these spaces that it created, that not only is it absorbing carbon dioxide, but also the water is absorbing calcium from the rock. And the calcium comes from the seashells and the coral that make up the limestone. So the water trickled into these spaces that it created. That carbon dioxide that was at first in the water is released, and then that calcium is deposited in the form of crystal. We call that calcite crystal. So all the formations are entirely made up of crystal that we call calcite, even though some of them might not look like it. And that's called the filling in process. So typically that process starts happening with these right here. These are called tubular stalactites scientifically, but personally I call them soda straws. So these form when water pulls up on the ceiling and begins to drip. So those drips of water, they make rings of calcite, and gravity will pull those rings downward over time and make a hollow tube or a soda straw. Eventually though, that tube will get clogged, but that does not stop the flow of the water. Instead of that water flowing on the inside of the tube, it transfers to the outside, which builds thicker layers, kind of like a tree. And that's when you get a full-blown stalactite, like the one above my head here. So these grow at a rate of about 1 inch for every 100 years, and about a foot every 1,200 years if we do the math. That's the opposite of a...
No, you keep trying to go all the way along. Come on, dude. Let's keep on. Okay. Wow.
I know, beastly. Better catch up to the group. I'll be the one that gets lost on the tour.
She's gonna come and on the way home. You can use this one, you know. Yeah, that water is full of water.
Alright, so this room on the left-hand side here, this is called the dome room. This is the second tallest room in the cavern. It's about 80 feet tall from where we're standing to the highest part of the city out there. So even though this is called the dome room, speleologists, which are cave scientists, use a slightly more technical term. They would call this a breakdown dome. So at one point, there's actually several different floors that were made entirely out of crystal. We call that calcite rock. Except once the water that was once in this room left, that calcite rock becomes very brittle. It would have collapsed under its own weight, and that's what left all this rubble here on the bottom of the floor. So these two pieces right here are pieces of that calcite rock flooring. So we know all this flowstones begin to form over the top. So we know this event must have occurred long before the flowstone was here. And then we look right over here, we see a separate tunnel. So this is a man-made tunnel, and it's called the Thompson Tunnel. So that's named after the Thompson brothers. They were the original developers of the tour between 1959 and 1964, which is the year of our very first tour. So this tunnel was originally supposed to be for the tour, and they were trying to blast this up in the basement room. However, once they got about 60 feet down the tunnel, they had to stop. Behind that wall, they heard the sound of rushing water. As you can imagine, it'd probably be a bad idea to blast that wall to flood us out of here. Behind that wall, during times of heavy rainfall, is a subterranean river that flows through the limestone. So if you guys were here during the wintertime, you can hear that behind the wall. It is quite loud. However, right now it's dried up. So one thing we might notice is some of these broken off formations here. So this is not natural. This is, of course, when they were blasting this tunnel, but oftentimes it allows us to see something that's pretty cool. If you look right above your guys' heads here, you might see that broken off stalactite on the ceiling. Everybody see that? So that allows us to see the interior of this formation, but all the formations look like this on the inside. So anything in the caverns you see that is either white or clear, that is pure calcite crystal. But however, on a lot of the formations around here, we notice that there's kind of a brown coating on the outside. So as that rainwater is traveling through the soil and through the limestone, it also drags down a lot of minerals and taking it as debris with it. So over time, that debris gets deposited on the outside of crystals, and it forms that outer crust that we're seeing on most formations. So if you look here in the dome room, we'll see what I call the crystal carrot. And it's a newly formed stalactite, newly quote unquote, because that's about 4,000 years old right there. But if you look a little bit down into the left, you might see Tina, and she's a llamacorn. See Tina's head and her unicorn horn here. You might see her neck and the rest of her body just below her. Big llamacorn or an alpacacorn, whichever you guys prefer. So, us tour guides, we call those our fantasy formations. See, I spend most of my week inside the caverns, so I try to have a little bit of fun to show you guys different things I see. In fact, one of my favorite ones is right up here. His name's Indiana Jones, little cave explorer. See him hanging off that little cliff there? He's a little person. See his 2 feet hanging down. You might see his right arm going this way. I'm going to turn off my lights so that you can see his hat a little bit better. Those are pretty fun. Does anyone have any questions about anything so far?
These are amazing.
So we're going to be doing about 612 stairs in total today, and we've only done about 30 of them so far. So from this point onward, we're going to have a lot of stairs to climb. And this next part I call our 80-step program with the workout. This is the most aerobic part. Beyond that, there are more stairs, but it is more broken up. The whole reason I'm even bringing it up is because it's the only location you can turn around throughout the entire tour. If you do continue up those stairs with us, you do have to finish out the rest of the tour. If you do need to turn around for any reason, you would go down those stairs over here that we initially came up, through the entrance tunnel, out the door, and then back to the visitor center. So inside the visitor center, there is a movie playing, and that's actually our cave tour that we're recording. So you're not going to miss out on anything. But otherwise, we're going to take a left and go up those steeper stairs to the crystal room.
Some kind of alien. Oh. That one if you're paying attention.
I think every time I come back here, it's like...
cool. Holy nachos, what a walk. Do you feel the burn yet? What a workout. Oh, whoa, look at those ones. They look like barnacles.
This one looks like a porno.
I can skip the gym today. Oh, that's cool. Forgot there wasn't a handle there. Can't touch anything in here because if you touch anything with your hands, the oils will ruin the crystals. But we've had a couple people doing that, unfortunately, on our tour. Oh, look at that. Whoa. Incredible.
That's right down there. You might see that. Yeah, the big body of water that's in there. So, because there used to be water in this room, you see the presence of cave or cave popcorn. Not the food names here. So, when cave popcorn forms, when the water drips off of the ceiling, it travels through the air, and then it hits the surface.
I like the cave popcorn.
Water in here. And then that drip of water will splash outwards, which deposits calcite on the walls. So you guys might see stuff up here that looks very rough textured, maybe like popcorn. Well, over on this side of the wall, we see something that's actually like coral, like what we're seeing right there. Also, because it is very humid inside the caverns, water can condensate on the walls, and then eventually evaporate when you get enough air. But the reason we call this the crystal room is this large crystal chandelier that sits right above our heads here. Everyone see that? So that chandelier is made from a whole bunch of delicate formations that some will look like tree branches. So those formations are called stalactites. And stalactites are very rare. They only form in 5% of caves in the world. So here at Shasta Caverns, we're a part of that. It allows a small trickle of water to come down into this room, just on this side, however. So that's why we see some small formations that are growing. But even though these formations look very small, they could be as old as the oldest ones we're seeing in the caverns. Because those rates of growth are just averages. They don't have that same access to water. So because this is a dead room, it's deemed that nothing will grow anyhow, we have implanted this one calcite crystal you guys can feel if you're curious. But all the formations are made up of. It will give you good vibes, I promise. Make you feel much better. You can, I'll touch it myself. But beyond this, there is no more touching. Remember that. I just wanted the good vibes. So beyond this room, we'll be going into another room called the inscription room, but I will not be stopping. So I just wanted to explain a little bit about it. So on the bus, I mentioned that inscription that was left inside the caverns, and we're going to see it coming up here on the right-hand side of the pathway. So that is the original inscription, as I mentioned. It's written in carbide soot from their carbide lamps that would have been attached to their helmets. So the result of that carbide burning is, of course, soot. They would have dipped their finger in that carbide and then wrote it on the wall like what you'll be seeing. So we'll see both of the first explorers' names and also the date they entered. And that date is November 11th of 1878. It only says 78, so don't think it's 1978. It is much older. Believe it or not, that is the original inscription because, as we know, oils, they seal off a lot of things in the caverns, not only formation, but also the carbide on the wall when they wrote it there.
They're upstairs. I just saw a bat. We do have live bats in this one. That was crazy. I want to suck blood. Every time I see a bat. I better catch up before I get lost from the group again.